Hello again, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show. This is episode 573. If you've been following along for a while, you've noticed that 2022 is the 10-year celebration of the publication of my book, The 50 Mile Bouquet. It's a book that, to be honest, started me along the journey that became the Slow Flowers movement. Here it is. In a tribute to this small but mighty book, I'm spending parts of this year circling back to interview as many people featured in its pages as possible. The 50 Mile Bouquet was photographed by David Perry, designed by James Forkner, and brought to market by St. Lynn's Press publisher Paul Kelly back in 2012. The opening chapter of the 50 Mile Bouquet includes profiles of several of the flower farmers who shaped a story and influenced my understanding of domestic floral agriculture. These are people who grew specialty cut flowers long before the term slow flowers was coined. They are the OGs, the originals, who have quietly practiced their craft as artisan growers, supplying their customers, both flower farmers and florists, with superior quality heirloom blooms. So today you will meet Charles and Bethany Little of Eugene-based Charles Little and Company. They're in Oregon. Their story appears in a section of the book called Grower's Wisdom, in which we introduce several inspiring growers and tell their stories. Charles Little has tended to ornamental crops in the verdant Willamette Valley of Oregon since 1986, and I value his perspective and insights about how flower farmers have navigated the past decade and more. You met Bethany Little earlier this year when I featured her as a guest during her appearance as a Northwest Flower and Garden Festival instructor. So this is a bonus interview with Bethany. I've hosted both Bethany and Charles on prior episodes of the Slow Flowers podcast. So you'll find links to those past appearances in our show notes at slowflowerspodcast.com for episode 573. Let's jump right in and meet Charles and Bethany. I'll share our sponsor thank you at the end. Well, I'm here today with Charles Little and Bethany Little of Charles Little and Company in Eugene, Oregon. And it's so fun to sit down with you. Thanks so much for welcoming me into your beautiful farmhouse. So I'm trying to do some flashbacks and talk to people who were so generous to share their stories in the 50 Mile Bouquet. And it all kind of started here, actually, because I met the two of you in 2010 at the ASCFG regional meeting that was held here. And boy, what a lot has happened. That was 12 years ago, but that kind of led to having a feature about your business in a section called Grower's Wisdom in the 50 Mile Bouquet. Doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but we've been moving along here in the flower world. Maybe I can ask Charles to give us a snapshot of the company, because you are the OG. You're the guy who started flower farming before there was it was a hot trend. You were kind of an early adopter in your business model, right?
So do you want me to describe it today?
Yeah, give us a snapshot.
2022?
Today. Yeah.
Well, we've never sold more flowers in a week or in a year ever before. So it's kind of exhausting. We've never had so many people on the payroll, and the business has never done so well.
Wow.
And it's because of COVID.
Really? Still?
Not still, but maybe not still, but just from the moment we were panicking in March, April, May of 2020 to, to now. But I think as a result of that, when flowers from other countries like Holland and Germany and Australia, New Zealand, and South America, Central America could no longer send flowers here, flower buyers who had still a need for flowers were forced to come to the American grower. Mm-hmm. And so they benefited. Grocery stores benefited by American flower growers, and American flower growers benefit. And so that was pretty remarkable. The other thing that has occurred over the last 6 or 8 years is Mayesh has made a distribution hub at the Portland Flower Market. And how long has that been, hon?
I think that's been 5 years.
At least.
5, maybe 6 years.
And so right now, Mayesh by far is our biggest customer.
Wow.
And so that concerns me. But at the same time, we have 2 or 3 other really big customers, and then we have a couple of handfuls of people that get 200 or 300 bunches a week.
Wow.
But, Mayesh might get 2,000, 3,000 bunches a week. And so we work really hard to satisfy that company.
Well, you've always been relationship based, and just describing the fact that you knew these gals, Heather and Amy, from past wholesalers, like, I'm guessing when you said that people started contacting you during COVID, some of them were probably old customers who had bought from you 20 years ago. And
Not really, no,
Okay.
because
No.
wholesalers were shut down too. Like Mayesh had to close.
Right.
So all the wholesalers nationwide were closed. All of our buyers, like our bread and butter buyers, were closed. So no, it was New Seasons that,
Who was still purchasing
yeah.
through New Seasons.
Yeah, we went,
themselves.
our sales with them increased, I think, 700%
Wow, wow.
that year.
So that boost you're talking about kind of was radically, like the thrust came from COVID, and now some of that has, in a positive way, continued on for your channels. Because
Right.
wholesalers are back online.
And all the things that have happened to our country and the world over the last 4 or 5 years, and we add this COVID thing, it definitely triggered, we were able to make ends meet really satisfactorily in 2020 when we really didn't think we would, but the impact of it globally, and the supply chain and all those things that we're still dealing with, continue to, I think, improve the sales of the American flower grower.
Yeah.
So while we're a little bit kind of trying to get over the pandemic, you still, you probably still have to get a negative COVID test to return to the U.S. if you go to Mexico or Argentina or France or something. I'm not sure.
I did in May coming in from Canada,
Right,
so it might have changed since then, but not that long ago.
right. I was in Mexico in February, and I thought about it 10 times a day. I hope I test negative, because I didn't want to stay in Cancun. So, that's still
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
The supply chain's still, rough. Airlines are still irregular, and that might go on for a long time.
So,
But-
for what you're shipping, you're reliant on airlines, is that what you're saying? Because you're shipping overnight, a lot of product.
I guess I'm sort of saying that, but I'm mostly saying that because of the pandemic, growers in Central and South America couldn't ship their flowers to the
Right,
United States.
right.
And then they got sick, and then there was supply chain problems. So it's still not, the flow has not returned.
That's a good point.
So that's
Bethany-
kind of what I meant.
Yeah, and Bethany, I cut you off, you were gonna say.
Oh, it's okay. No, I think that the flow has not quite returned, but it has started again. But one of the things I was gonna say is I found the shift about more like 5 years ago, because we started selling more, because Mayesh moved to Oregon. They bought Billingsley Wholesale, which was like the wholesale house that we sold to kind of in Portland. And that was, and then when they were gonna close, I was like, we have to become members of the OFGA. And because I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. So we became members, and then they were purchased by Mayesh, and then we have like these 2 happy camps up in Portland. We sell directly to the florist, who is gaga all over the product that no wholesaler would buy, because I'm like, I like it, I'm gonna show it to you directly.
Well, give me a couple examples.
Like Hebe, it's like the little boxwood Hebe, because it's so short, I mean, no one would touch it. And I'm like, yeah, but a florist will touch it, because they
Yes.
see the value in it. I can't think of another one right off the top of my
Well-
head, but it's like that kind of thing that I as a plants person, or Charles as a plants person, love it.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is sort of the people who geek out about horticulture and unique plants, you're serving that person too.
Right, and those are, the florist in Portland is a spoiled florist, because they see all of these beautiful, wonderful plants, because we live in Wonderland,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
growing. And so they were super excited when we first started participating in that market, because they got to see all these new things. And when Heather showed up to purchase for Mayash nationwide, she was super excited, because she's, a plant geek, and could get that into the Mayash stream.
Right, and sell these unique Pacific Northwest grown varieties down into LA or into.
Right. So they have
other
like
channels.
4 or 5 hubs down in California that I think eat most of our flowers. And then some of it goes to their other hubs. But I think that is something that also that people were becoming a little bit more fluent. And so it's not just staple flowers going into arrangements anymore. And so we've been through these trends where it's just like, oh, just rip out the armaria. No one's going to buy that, because one, like, I have to put 30 stems in a bunch, and the bunch is still this big,
Yeah,
and it's,
yeah.
they when they put a stem in, it has to count. So they're going to buy sunflowers, like,
Got it,
so
yeah.
they're not going to buy these weird, interesting things.
Wispy things.
But now they are. And also I think drieds are coming back, and it's been a slow climb. But I think that the fact that we have almost sold out of all of our dried flowers, and I didn't throw them on the dump, I didn't compost a whole bunch of
Wow,
them.
that's amazing.
Is,
Tells you something.
yeah.
Well, I was going to ask Charles to describe what has changed in the last decade that you're growing. Like, what is your mix, and how has that changed? And maybe that will reflect what you're talking about with the dried. What have you added? What have you phased out of? And is it because of you're creating a demand by growing cool things, or you're seeing an opportunity and just showing it to the marketplace?
That's sort of hard to answer accurately, because we grow so many different things here, that I suppose there's things that we decide that no one's buying, or they're hard to take care of, or they get disease.
Yeah,
But I
tough
can't-
love. You just make these, you're like, okay, you're out, that sort of thing.
But maybe something will come to your mind.
Well, like, one thing we kind of regret now, but people were not buying Vitex to save the darn plants' lives. And we had like 3 rows of them, so we took 1 row out. And then, do we still have 2 rows, or just 1 row now?
We've been taking out cornice. We
Yeah.
planted a lot of red and yellow twig dogwood 20 years ago, and it was really hard to sell. And if we sold it all, it was because we sold it really cheaply,
Really cheap.
and we talked somebody into buying it. And
So you're like, wait a minute, why am I doing this?
right,
Yeah.
and while it takes up a lot of space, but it's really low maintenance. Once it gets established, there's pretty much, well, there's weeds, but they're not competing with the cornice.
Yes, right.
And we irrigate, so we've got water. It needs fertilizer. We fertilize it, but we've taken out probably 50% of our cornice.
And talk
we
about
did it
taking more out
and
all
we
the
did it
time.
in two different times. And
That's interesting, because when I met you, Charles, when I first came here, you gave a tour to the ASCFG, and I was just like soaking it all in. And that's when I first learned this philosophy of permaculture, the way I think you defined it, which was, growing these woody crops that would eventually become less labor intensive and could just keep producing for you year after year. And wouldn't cornice have been in that category?
oh yeah, I mean, it's a great example. It makes it makes long, beautiful stems, 3, 4, 5 feet long in a growing season. It's kind of a fall crop, because you want the leaves to fall off naturally, the cold temperatures bring the color up on the stem. And when you harvest it, you're kind of doing the pruning.
Yeah.
So it's a great crop, but we just couldn't sell it all. And it's in the south field, which has a deer fence around it, and so it's taking up some pretty valuable square footage of protected from deer.
Sure.
So taking it out was very expensive. You know, it required like a stump grinder.
Right.
A guy with a stump grinder.
These
It's
were
like
big
$1,000,
roots.
$2,000 to take out a quarter acre, you know. But then we got the ground for something else.
So what's growing there now?
Oh boy.
We put in this beautiful hypericum. Let's start just from that road. So
Yeah,
Which is a valuable
we put in
crop.
some, it's not, what is that called?
Fothergilla
Fothergilla,
for Thurgood.
which I wish would get it together.
I
but,
never pronounced it correctly. Are you joking?
that's how I want to pronounce it, so that's.
Fothergilla.
Yeah.
All right,
But
I'll
it's
Fothergilla.
probably pronounced Fothergilla. So we have this one called Mount Airy, and it's I'm growing it not so much for the flower, the spring flower, but for the beautiful fall foliage, because the leaves on it they stick.
They're kind of like a mahogany burgundy color, right?
Yeah, they're real multicolor, like
Okay.
Perosia. So that's in there now. Oh, we got some black cat salix in there now.
And we did plant other shrubs in other parts of the field at that time too that are new, like the mock orange.
Not.
I know, not in that area, but that we did the
Yeah,
same
that
thing
time
where
of year.
that kind of like we ripped out shrubs that we had for a very long time.
Two of the big rows that got initially ripped out and stump ground, we planted dahlias in. So it's kind of like tall cornice, a couple rows of dahlia, and then more tall cornice.
It's
So
a little motley.
well, it
No,
looks
but
kind of
that's
neat. You
interesting.
come
Yeah.
around the corner and there's this dahlia.
And the dahlias then are a little bit protected between the rows of cornice.
So they'd be protected from the wind, and they'd be protected. They might get a little shade at some points in the morning and evening, you know.
So when in the last 10 years, you've also expanded your acreage, right? Of what you're, or,
No, I
Okay.
haven't.
okay, you went from leasing to owning, I guess that was the change.
Yes, I started here in '86 renting the farmland. And the properties were owned by the Saunders family, and I started on the South Field, which is a 15-acre tax lot that's zoned exclusive farm use only. So it's protected under the Oregon zoning laws from being developed. And it's relatively undeveloped even now. It has we have our farm stand on it. But I started farming that 1 acre, then 3, and then I filled it up. And then the north side, which I call the North Field, is it's a 21-acre tax lot, and it's got lots of improvements like 2 homes and outbuildings and a big machine shed and beautiful soil and frontage. We have about a half a mile of river frontage
Yes.
on all the tax lots combined.
So that's on the
So
other
it
side.
starts right here,
Okay.
right behind you, and it reaches all the way down to there.
Wow,
So
wow.
So over those years, I continued to kind of take care of the ground, the south field and the north field, which combined in sort of realistically the amount of acreage, it's about 25 acres.
Okay.
Despite the field size, there's riparian, there's gravelly areas you can't farm, but. So the Saunders ground is about 25 acres. Our little place here is a 5.5 acre little lot that's zoned rural residential. And so I was able to build a barn easily because it's I got an ag placement permit, but I was super easy to get a permit to build this house on account of it being zoned rural residential. And then we've leased another property we call Harold's, and Harold and Mildred were one of the early sort of farmers on CV. I think they arrived here in 1945. So I got to know Harold and Mildred, and And Harold had some cows out there. He goes, I'm sick of raising these cows. You want to farm this? I said, sure. And so I've been farming Harold's ground for 20, 25 years. And it's adjacent to the Northfield. So all these properties are contiguous in a way.
Wow.
There's a paved road that divides, or runs through
Sure.
the north side and the south side. So right now, if people ask me how much ground do I farm, I sort of added up 3 acres here, 25, another 6. What does that equal? So it's 35 to 40 acres.
Right. It's
And
mind-blowing.
it hasn't changed for a long, long time.
This pasture had plants in it, then I had sheep.
I remember when you had this.
And then we now have plants again. So this is right outside our windows here is now all rows of shrubs that we'll be able to start harvesting off of maybe next year or most likely year after. But it's, this area here is full of plants that are gonna mature and
Yeah.
be very popular and
Well, that's just the patience game, right? Just getting the woodies in the ground, waiting 2-3 years so you can start deriving income off of them.
Right.
Yeah. So between woody, what's the percentage of woodies versus herbaceous crops or both crops?
Oh, boy. I would say woody shrubs and trees, maybe 40% of the ground. Herbaceous perennials, 30%,
And the rest.
35%, and the rest annual.
Okay.
So
That's a
annual
nice
ground
mix.
is like what I call open ground, it's celosia, zinnias, sunflowers, things like that,
the beloved straw.
But we are running out of ground for annuals, and
Yeah, we
I
have-
totally ran out. I have
Annuals suffering in cell trays.
I've got a greenhouse full of celosia. I ran out of room to plant,
Oh my
and
goodness. But you have some in the ground.
a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you're willing to kind of just call it good right now.
It's the first time in all these years that I haven't been able to plant everything.
Wow.
So,
Well, I
and
think-
it's kind of my fault because I just, when they were pricking out the seedlings, I said, just prick them all out. And
Yeah.
so.
Well, we did double sowings of some things too because it just rained.
Oh, we did a
for
backup sowing of
5
straw flowers
weeks.
for sure. And so we have about 30 flats of 72 cell trays and straw flowers. They've been pruned, they're super root bound. But if I plant them, they will make.
They will
I know
probably
they
be
will.
this
But
amazing
I have
fall
to do
crop.
it before the end of July.
Yes. Ooh, I'm tempted. I'm tempted to buy a flat and take it home with me.
Oh,
You
we'll
should.
give you some.
Because I always plan on starting celosia from seed, but then it never happens. And of course, I only have room for about, 8 feet.
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
make you a little pack of celosia to take home.
Oh my God.
They're
that would
in
be
fact
so-
they're so stressed out they're starting to bloom a little bit, so you can see what the color is.
Oh my God.
And you just nip that and plant it.
So,
But the only thing that's really changed, and it's an important thing, is we were able to buy the farm in
Yes, that's what I wanted-
2016.
okay. That's
And
important.
I was at a stage in my life where I was just like, I'm never gonna get this ground, and that's okay. I've got 5.5 acres. We're almost debt free, and here comes the family saying we're gonna put this property on multiple listing, and we had to scramble and figure out how to buy it.
Right, I remember that. You had very little notice, right?
Very little notice. 2016 was the most stressful year that we've ever had. But it was, the story's long and it's a great story. I won't tell it, but we got this place.
You need to write that, Charles.
And I turned 60 years old in 2016.
That's pretty amazing. And so now, all the land that you leased, except for the
Harold's.
cow land, is now at Charles Little and Company property. That must
Pretty
feel-
much,
that
yeah.
must
There
feel
was a
great.
2-acre tax lot that was zoned rural residential 2 acres. That was part of the Saunders estate or ground or part of their farm. And a family from Springfield placed an offer that was way over asking price. And the family came to me and said, they want to buy this 2 acres, Charles, and if you just tell me, do you need it? Because if you do, you're going to have to match their price.
Because it
And-
had a residence on it.
They bought that for probably $275,000, and it was listed at $225 for 2 acres, and I wanted it, but
It wasn't worth it.
It wasn't worth it, and the beautiful thing about it is that it took $225,000 off the top of the price for me. So
And
suddenly I'm looking at $675, or we were.
it also made our farm bank say like, well, now we'll want to talk to you, because they did not want to touch that piece of property because it was zoned rural residential. It had a double wide on it. They,
Kind of was a negative in their mind.
yeah, they don't want that.
Wow.
And we're working with a farm bank, not a bank.
And you have to, if you're buying farmland, bona fide farmland, mortgage banks don't touch that. You have to, our farm bank is called Northwest Farm Credit Service. And while there are other big banks that will work with farmers to buy farmland, there's companies like Northwest Farm Credit Services that take care of you.
Yeah, and you had probably done business with them before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been with them for 25 years or so.
Yeah. So that's the blessing of the fact that we lost that property and they built a house on gorgeous sandy loam.
Yeah.
Like I look over there and I'm like, I can't look at the house. I'm like,
You can grow a lot more flowers on that soil than just a house.
but I just sort of always keep remembering that because we don't have it, we have the farm.
So, Charles, I wanted to just hear from you about sort of if you have your crystal ball, what direction do you see? I feel like you've kind of course corrected a little bit with, now you own your land, now you have these amazing wholesale channels that you said maybe you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but I mean, the thing with Maesh is they are diversified, so you're not just selling to one branch.
Right.
So I feel like that's maybe, you feel confident in that.
I do. I have a lot of confidence in my relationship with Maesh. I think that's like they need me as much as I need them, maybe.
Well, and their customers are asking for locally grown, American grown,
Right.
more than ever, so.
And they're
you're
such a
like-
big company that they're probably not going to go bankrupt and disappear.
Yeah.
I have a lot of faith in them, but I also know that we're diversified in who we sell to. We have, other large growers. There's Oregon Coastal Flowers who we sell a lot of product to as well. And then we have our wholesalers nationwide that, like I just sent 18 boxes to Texas to this relatively young new wholesale house. It's been there for 5 years. And I have a buyer in New York City, and if they don't get 2 boxes, they get 10 boxes. I mean, every week.
It's a steady.
But the crystal ball, your question.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you mean by that.
Do you feel like things are trending up, just in terms of demand? And I guess I feel like there is a shift in the marketplace, more than when I first met you, for customers asking for domestic or local flowers.
Mm-hmm. I see it.
We're selling more flowers than ever this year, and last year we were selling more flowers than ever. So.
Right.
Um,
And I don't know what I mean by crystal ball, other than just like, what do you see on the horizon that giving you, like the universe saying, Charles, you made those decisions a while ago and they were the right ones for setting the course of this business.
Right. I guess I hesitate to decide that we're going to do as well this year as we did last year.
Sure.
And I hesitate to say that our gross income and our gross profit is gonna increase year after year after year. I worry a lot about the problems that we're having in this country and the world, you know, affecting our lives in deep, deep ways. So I guess it's, you know, it's sort of a year at a time, you
I
know,
think
a
that's
season
fair.
at a time.
That's very fair. That's all you can operate on from a growing mindset anyway. It's a season at a time.
Right, but at the same time, you know, I've been at this for 36 years right here on Seaview Loop Road, and we've managed.
Yeah.
We've managed to go from one year to the next. We've managed to buy land and build a home. We've managed to buy the farm, and so I'm confident that we'll manage.
That's fair and actually hopeful. How about
Right.
you, Bethany?
I see the trend of people self-soothing with flowers. If I had to, I mean, I think this is the first year I've actually used my square reader register properly down at the farm stand. So, but sometimes I'm like, that was a lot of you pick bunches.
Yeah.
Like they can come to the farm stand and they can buy picked or a bouquet or ready-made, but people, there won't be an event and there'll still be, you know, like 45 you pick rings that were sold. Like, so that's like, how many people was that?
Right.
You know, like,
Right.
so people want to take the time to stop, slow down, relax. Like, I think that self-care is becoming bigger trend. So, and also people are just basically worn out. And so they just are stopping and slowing down. And so they're doing things like going and picking flowers. They're buying our dried flowers online because we started that shop, and they're, you know, crafting.
Yes.
They're turning off their devices.
Yeah,
They're
the
getting,
DIY.
they're worn out.
Yeah.
So I think people are finally going back to, you know, like where I kind of like came into it in the 80s, where I just spent time just deep in my, whatever I was
You're
crafting and touching.
Being a
and,
maker.
yeah. And I think people are coming back to it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure. You know, get a degree, work with computers. How are you going to eat? What are you, like, at some point, we live
How are you gonna
in
feed
this
your
world.
soul?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't think it's going to be the metaverse. It's
I-
really land and dirt.
I love that. And I do think that Charles's alluding to the supply chain, that is, it's a global challenge that is not resolved, and it's, you know, I don't know, we can't predict whether it's going to get better or worse, but I see it in the book business where books are sitting on container ships in China and they can't get into the US, and people's publication dates keep getting pushed out, and, you know, it's like, well, maybe we made the right choice to print in the US because, you know, maybe we paid a little bit more per book, but we have the books. And
Well,
I
you
think
made the right decision for a lot of reasons.
Yes, but I think that the analogy in the flower industry is the same, where you're the go-to source, and you're ready to, you don't say no when somebody calls, you figure out how to supply them, especially if they pay the price, right?
You know, I actually do say no to people who call, because we can't grow anymore.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
there.
You might send them to the wholesaler that you sell to, and they can buy that.
I mean, no, like, I don't know if I even told you, there was a guy who called and he's like, can you expand your business? I want to sell, you know, I want to buy a lot of your dried flowers and sell them. Like, you know, like huge case
like
lots.
a program, yeah.
Yeah, like a lot. And I'm like, we can't grow anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have any more dirt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any more time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very interesting place to be.
Right.
That we've hit our max, and so
Wow.
I'm hoping that, you know, like we just keep that, but, you know, like keep the arc.
Yeah, and then fine tune.
Mm-hmm.
Like Charles was saying, phase in new plants that are maybe more profitable.
Yep.
That's cool. Anything else you want to leave me with, Charles, before we wrap this up?
You gotta tell me about this dried flower customer.
I didn't even get his name.
You have this global view in terms of just seeing the arc of time and arc of history from when you started, and you were kind of a lonely flower farmer out there in the world of people growing edible crops, and you had staying power.
Yeah, I guess I was determined to make a living at this, and
You did.
yeah.
I think, you just pull the bootstraps up and go to vend at farmers markets and do everything you possibly can during the lean years. And, so exciting to know that, I work at home on Saturdays and I don't have to do farmers markets.
That's a really great gauge right there.
When you get to choose how you sell your flowers, and I think it's beautiful. I think that, like you said in the beginning, we're a relationship-driven business. We're extremely loyal, and quality is really, really important to us. So, and consistency. So I think that's what's part of what's helped this business.
That's your success strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've spent all these years almost deliberately trying not to pay attention to my so-called competition. Trying not to, and it's been easy. I just don't pay attention
Yeah, you're in your lane.
to
You know
what
what you're doing.
other people are growing.
Yeah.
And as a result, I pay attention to woody shrub and tree catalogs, seed catalogs, and then I wander around wherever I'm wandering and look at plant material. I have nursery buddies that turn me on to stuff. But I think as a result of that, a lot of the things that we've offered over the years have been maybe not entirely original, but from my point of view, I thought of it and I planted it.
Right.
And
Right.
while other people may have thought to plant that little hebe, or in a lot of cases, it's like collecting seed at a botanic garden, in France or in New Zealand, or it's your nurseryman friends sort of, giving you something,
Sure.
That you've never seen before. So I've had dozens of things that Nathan has brought over here and said, Charles, here, man, take this, and it's some kind of ornamental grass. And he's just like, he's a dyed-in-the-wool horticulturist. He's a nurseryman. He's Mr. Plant.
But he's kind of seeing that you have a different channel, and there's potential there for that as a cut.
I think he really enjoys seeing what we do here.
Yeah.
It's definitely when I met him down at the farmers market. Actually, this is it's farmers market. I've never bashed farmers markets. I think they're the most amazing connectors. He would come to our stall and talk to me, and he saw all these different plants because we had some of the regular things, but we also had some of the other things. And so it's like,
He saw you as kindred spirits.
yeah. So it's been a beautiful relationship.
That's cool.
It's so funny because he'll be like, oh, what about this Senadrinium? And I'm like, he's like, it has this kind of flower. And I'm like, I don't care about the flower. And then like finally he understood, like, oh, this is what they're doing with it.
Show me the Senadrinium with great foliage, and then we'll
Show
talk.
me the one that's upright with the
Yeah.
great foliage. Don't show me the one that's, like.
That's a great
And
story.
so it's sort of fun. Like he kind of gets it, and so now he really starts telling us about things, or will send us images, and sometimes he'll just have a lot of it, and he'll be like, "You need to buy this from me."
Okay, the
so.
takeaway is make friends with your local nursery grower. You might find some great varieties.
Oh yeah.
And travel, like Charles alluded to. Well, this has been so much fun. I can't believe that 10 years have passed since we featured you both in the 50 Mile Bouquet, and I've known you longer, and I'm a better person for it. You guys have taught me so much, and I value your friendship.
That's
Thanks so
really
much.
wonderful to
Thank
have
you.
you.
To the next 10 years. Thanks so much for joining me today. That was a wonderful conversation. You can visit slowflowerspodcast.com to watch the replay video of today's conversation. Look for episode 573. And there you will also be able to download a free PDF of the Heart of the Country chapter, my first interview with Charles and Bethany, that appears in the 50 Mile Bouquet. Before I go, I'd also like to thank our sponsors who bring this show to you. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 850 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor, Farm Grow Flowers. Farm Grow Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $10 million of U.S. grown, fresh, and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgrowflowers.com. And thank you to the Gardener's Workshop, which offers a full curriculum of online education for flower farmers and farmer florists. Online education is more important than ever, and you'll want to check out the course offerings at thegardenersworkshop.com. Thanks to Longfield Gardens, which provides home gardeners with high quality flower bulbs and perennials. Their online store offers plants for every region and every season, from tulips and daffodils to dahlias, caladiums, and amaryllis. Check out the full catalog at Longfield Gardens. That's longfield-gardens.com. And thanks to Johnny's Selected Seeds, an employee-owned company that provides our industry with the best flower, herb, and vegetable seeds, supplied to farms large and small, and even to backyard cutting gardens like mine. Find the full catalog of flower seeds and bulbs at johnnyseeds.com. The Slow Flowers Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show or our long-running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowersociety.com. Consider joining or making a donation to sustain our ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find more details at slowflowerspodcast.com. We have a donate button in the column on the homepage. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of The Slow Flowers Show and The Slow Flowers Podcast. And next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll see you next week.